All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Dewar from the Career Resource Center, and welcome panelists and audience members to What Can I Do with a Biology Major? First, I'm going to introduce our panelists. From your right to left, we have Josh Enke, who works as a clinical certifying scientist at MEDTOX Laboratories. Donna Knevel-Walters is a veterinarian at St. Joseph's Equine Clinic. Jesse Ellens is a operations supervisor at Cargill Kitchen Solutions. And Ross Kopher is a scientist / product developer at DiaSorin Incorporated. We will let Josh start his introduction and how he got to his current career after this. And then after the rest of the panelists have continued, we'll open it to questions. Thank you.
All right, I graduated in 2006 with a biology degree and a minor in chemistry. So I guess I had a pretty typical 4 years here at St. John's. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Forever I thought I was going to go on to medical school or pharmacy school and decided that wasn't for me, but still had no idea. So I went to the job fair my senior year and actually got a job offer that day from a medical laboratory that I didn't even know what they did. And I ended up taking that job right after I graduated. So like they said, I work at MEDTOX Laboratories, which is in St. Paul. They are a basic clinical reference laboratory. So basically they're testing for drugs in urine, whole blood, and pretty much any other fluid you can think of. The company is split up into two parts. One is workplace testing, which is mostly dealing with pre-employment testing or parolee testing and that kind of thing, so a more legal area. My side of the laboratory is the clinical side. So basically what we're doing is we're doing testing just to see, different levels in your blood. So basically, if you go to the doctor and you get blood and urine drawn, we're going to test it and tell you what's in it and at what level so that they can do a good job of prescribing the right medications and finding if you do have some sort of disease or abnormality in the levels in your body. I started off at MEDTOX testing meconium. Does anybody know what that is? It's a baby's first stool sample. So basically it's testing to see if the mother used drugs during the pregnancy at all. From there I kind of moved on into blood testing. So we was doing more autopsy testing, so to see what was in somebody's body after they died. And now I primarily work in pain management. So in pain management, people are being prescribed different opiates or, if they have chronic pain and things like that. And we're doing testing to see that they are being compliant with whatever program they're on. So if they come in, they'll collect a urine sample, and if they're supposed to be taking oxycodone and 2 other drugs, we're going to see, they're taking those, they're at the right levels. Or if they're taking additional ones that they're not supposed to be taking, we'll also detect those and report the results to the client. My role now, I'm not really in the lab anymore. I kind of have a desk job. I started off doing, basically think of your chemistry labs, and that's what I was doing when I first started off at MEDTOX. So you'd take a sample, you'd add chemicals to it, you'd do calibrators, quality control to make sure you have the right levels, and basically add chemicals, do extraction, and then run it on GCMS or LC, LCMS, anything like that. Now I do basically paperwork. I review the testing results once they're completed to make sure that they're valid, report the results to the client, and then also probably about half my job is answering phones from doctors and providing interpretation of test lab results. I think that pretty much covers it.
That's interesting. Well, I graduated in 2001 and with just a biology major. And then I went on to complete 4 more years at the University of Minnesota, the College of Veterinary Medicine in the St. Paul campus. And once I graduated with my Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, then I went on to complete a year-long internship after that at a referral hospital in the Twin Cities that focused just on horses. And pretty much right after that, came back to this area, which is where I was from. I was pretty much grew up in St. Cloud, south of St. Cloud, most of my life, and so came back to this local area, which was nice for my family. My husband and I both had lots of family members here still, so that was really benefit for me. And pretty much just started practicing right out the door, and learned a lot as you got out of school, not so much while you're in vet school. And so pretty much on-the-job learning is what happens for most veterinary students. And my day is anything but typical. It's, when you're a veterinarian, it's anything from routine to emergencies all day long and all night long. So I can start anywhere from in the clinic appointments to going to farm calls to see animals. I mostly do work on horses, occasional cat, dog, cow, goat on the farm, but pretty much just horses. So clients will either bring their horses to the clinic in St. Joe, or they will they'll have me come to the farm to see their animal. And anything routine work for me would include wellness care, vaccinations, deworming, dental care for the horses. Emergency type stuff will be surgery, whether it's emergency surgery repairs for lacerations, that kind of thing, or just fractures, eye injuries, anything that a horse can get hurt on, they will. And so we'll see a lot of emergencies, unfortunately. That's probably the downfall with being a veterinarian, is you see a lot of emergencies after hours, but at the same time it's really rewarding because it's every day is different. So that's pretty much, I guess, kind of my day in a nutshell, but it's just every day is very different for me. So that was my career path as far as what took me to being a vet.
Okay, I'm Jesse. Graduated in 2007 with a biology degree. Didn't get a job right away, so don't be discouraged. You can always find one. Ended up getting in with Cargill out in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I started as a microbiology technician. So out there we did the bacteria for cheese and yogurt, so a lot of testing, in-process sampling while we were growing this bacteria. And then moved on more recently in the last couple years up to Monticello, a different business unit. Now it's dealing with eggs and egg products. In my current role, I'm a supervisor of 4 production lines, and then also our incoming tanks of egg. So day to day we bring in about 10 tankers of egg, about 50,000 pounds each, making sure that our testing is getting done as it should. Microbiology sampling is being accomplished. Cleaning is full and complete. Making sure all my employees are staying engaged and have everyone on the team doing what they're supposed to do on the production lines and things like that. Definitely a plant environment, so hard hat, boots, uniform. Again, as she said, something different every day. You're always, for me, lots of troubleshooting. I'm trying to figure out different recipes for eggs and working with the R&D teams and things like that to make sure that we're meeting customer requirements and being innovative so that we can stay competitive.
My name is Ross. It sounds like I'm the old person on the panel. I graduated in '99 with a biology degree. I did come to St. John's as a pre-med, but I decided that I wanted to go into research rather than doing medicine. And I got my master's and my PhD at the University of Illinois at Chicago in bioengineering. My specialties were in bone regeneration, and my expertise was in stem cells. But after a quick postdoc at the University of Chicago, I moved back up here with my wife to the Twin Cities, and I got a position as a postdoc, an NIH fellow at the University of Minnesota at the Stem Cell Institute. I was there for about 3-4 years, and then acquired a job at a immunodiagnostic company out in Stillwater. We are a group that design the similar types of tests to what Josh does. We have a specific machine or a platform in which we design our assays to try and test for multiple types of clinical samples. You name it, we test on them. And we design the assays for them, so vitamin D, testosterone, estradiol, and we have a number of stool assays as well. But I'm currently a scientist there. I was brought in pretty much as a fast track for a project leader position to try and produce a group of scientists to further more assays for this company. I see research is always my chosen path, and it's interesting in that it's a clear difference from academia, but I still get to use my scientific know-how to try and answer different types of questions rather than the questions that academics try and answer. My typical work day is it's nicer than as a doctor. I 9 to 5, or if I want to come in earlier, I can do 8 to 4. So, but that's pretty much it for that.
All right, thanks for the introduction, guys. I'd like to open up the floor to the students now. If you guys have any questions that you'd like to ask, yeah, just raise your hand and go from there.
So I guess this could be for Josh or Ross. And you guys, so when you guys are starting a new like, what do you look for in a prospective employee, I guess?
Go ahead. I can go first, I guess. Basically, you know, we're going to look at typical stuff, GPA and that kind of thing. But mostly what we're looking at is somebody who can take initiative, somebody who's shown that they're interested in their field beyond just taking, you know, the normal classes. So something like somebody who did summer research or somebody who was a TA, something like that, so we know that they're actually, you know, really interested in the field. And also, I mean, laboratory experience is definitely the biggest thing for us. We want to know, you know, did you just do the basic, you know, biology, chemistry ones, or did you go a little bit further and take ones that were a little bit more challenging? Like if you took biochemistry, that's typically pretty high on our list, and anything that's going to get you a lot of hands-on experience, especially with LC, MS, or GCMS, anything, chromatography and mass spectrometry.
I guess there's a couple people that look for jobs, people that are just there to do the work and get the paycheck, and then those that are interested in looking outside the box and take the initiative. And unfortunately, I took a look at the sample resume. There's a lot of these out there. And it's going to be an interview that's going to really take you to the next level. And being able to show that you're not one to just do the work, but to bring in new ideas, to show the initiative. And the only way that you could see that on a resume is what Josh said, in that you need to show initiative here. There's a number of professors over at the biology department that are more than willing to have people do small research and get it done early. And do it throughout your junior and senior year. If you show on your resume that you had a research project second semester of senior year, no one's going to take you seriously, because they're just, oh, I need something to put on my resume. How many people came through when I was a postdoc? My boss basically just filtered everyone to me. say, okay, well, have you taken the initiative to do anything? And, oh, you're in your senior year. No, you're not here for the research. You're here to just get something on a resume. So do it early, and if you're committed to it, you'll enjoy it. So.
I guess I would add on to that as well, as far as veterinary school, anything of that postgraduate work as well. Get your experience early. Let those admittance people that wherever you're going to apply to know that you put serious thought into this. You know this is something you want to do, and you've acquired the experience already. You know it's for you. You know what the work life is about. You know what the salary is about, and that shows them that you're serious. Because even in vet school applications, you know, your GPA is just part of it. Even though people say, oh, you have to have a 4.0 to get into vet school, that's not necessarily true. They're looking at your communication, your social skills, and especially your experience level. So I would definitely agree with get your experience early and make sure it shows.
And we turned down a number of people that had 4.0 GPAs to get into our lab.
Kind of going off that, how important is it to have like a biology major and a chem minor if you're interested in research versus having lots of experience? Like, what's more important or looked at better upon?
I'd say the experience. I was going to chem minor, but then I realized that my junior year I was going to have 4 4-hour labs in a week. I said no.
I did that.
My roommates are accounting majors and management majors, and they drank a lot more than I did. So, but it's the initiative you take. It's not necessarily, though there are certain classes that are looked on more highly than others. It's what you do with your time here, not necessarily just which classes you take. So, and like I said, the biology professors were amazing when I was here 15 years ago. So they were more than willing to take on people for free.
How important would you find it, like, if you had an applicant that did something like for scholarship and creativity day versus like a peer-reviewed article?
Absolutely, a peer-reviewed article is going to be pretty nice, but mainly when we're doing hiring, at least for our company, if you've done a research project, most people attach the paper. So I'll usually take, when I'm involved in it, I'll take a look through the paper. See, it doesn't even necessarily have to be published, but you know, if your advisor's name is most likely going to be on it as well, they'll probably want to get it published at least somewhere. So, yeah, it's important, but it's not. The initiative is the most important thing. And
if you're to the point of publishing a peer review article from a project from at a liberal arts college, great. But that's not going to make or break you. If you can have a poster at one of these local, it's more about the experience of doing the work and then having the experience of being able to present that work, because that's very important as well, because you can have amazing results, and if you can't tell your mother what you got, you're not a good scientist. So as they always said in my lab, it's the grandma test. If you can't try and prove it to your grandma, then the data doesn't work. So, but yeah, if you're even doing poster in graduate or in undergrad, then that's a lot more than a lot of people have done.
But if you haven't, be sure you can explain it.
Yes.
I've had a couple where, you know, they had something and they couldn't, you know, they didn't really have a good grasp of it. So.
This is usually the inappropriate question to ask, but if you could do anything different and you say did wrong from applying to a PhD
Well, that's tough because I kind of did a very different track from biology. I went into bioengineering, which a lot of schools weren't too keen on me joining their programs because I came from a school that had basically no engineering program whatsoever. So the only engineering theory that I had was whatever I got out of my intro to physics class. But I did get into a school that was willing to allow me to take some of the undergraduate classes on top of all the graduate classes I was taking at the same time. So, but I think the best thing to do is, and it would make it the easiest for you, is decide what you want to do as early as possible, and then look at the websites. We didn't have, I mean, we had the internet in '99, but not to the sake of what they have it now. And when I was doing my master's, I had to go to the library to find papers. Now I can just click a mouse. So, but specifically, you want to know what you need to kind of to know to get into those programs, because if you look at their entry requirements, it is a laundry list of things, and they really want you to be proficient in some important classes. So get those classes out of the way, and again, the undergraduate projects. See if you can find a project, learn experimental method. It's very important, because once you get in there, then you're on your own. There are a lot of professors that are just like, okay, you're here, figure it out. And I've had those professors, and I've also had very micromanaging professors as well. So, but you never know who you're going to end up with, and you always want to be able to be best prepared to get into whatever program you want to get into. I hope that answers your question. We need some questions from this side. Yes?
How did you determine what you wanted to do? Or did you just always know? Okay, yeah, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Yeah, so how I got hooked up with Cargill, I had a friend I played basketball with. He graduated a year in front of me. He worked for Aerotech, job placement company, if you guys have heard of it. And he got me, basically, he got me a foot in the door, and then from there I've just kind of created my own path. So like I said, I started the microbiology lab, quality assurance. And for me, I think the biggest thing, and something that, you know, maybe you should take away from this, is just, these guys have talked about a lot of like the classes and things that they took that they're looking at resumes, but within the production field, a lot of it is leadership and how you work with a team. So how do you communicate within that team, and just being able to show that, you know, maybe, you know, I didn't take any biochemistry, anything like that, but just being able to show that, you know, I can be a leader. Once you get that foot in the door, just continue to learn as much as you can, and, you know, keep going. The doors will open if that's really the company you want to be with. They'll just keep opening up for you. I think if you work hard and just keep at it, you'll be amazed at the different options you really have once you get going into this.
I think networking is a big thing too. I mean, if you work with your career advisors and the career services, there's a lot of, you know, a lot of us are on file. We'll take students in, let you guys shadow for a week or 2 weeks or whatever it may be. And so you can always have the opportunity for a short period of time to go, you know, work with one of us or anyone that you might be interested in working that field, and just get the idea if it's really what you want to do or not. And, you know, if you have no idea what you want to do, go out there and explore. This is the time to do it. Figure out what you want to do, and then spend your time and your, you know, energy on that experience. Because school obviously is expensive, and especially if you go on for further schooling, it's going to be even more. So really get that experience in college while you can. Take advantage of the free services that you have here is a really good option as well. I have students that call and are always wanting to shadow and ride along with me, and, you know, whether it's in high school or college or even graduated, not sure what they want to do, And we're more than willing to take those students in and show them what a day in our world is, and hopefully it'll spark them to continue on with it or find something else, but whatever the case is.
Yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to do for the longest time. I took classes, and everything always interests me, like the physiology of stuff, how different things at different levels of things in the body, how it affects and pushes things one way or the other. And that's kind of how I got, it's going to sound bad, I got interested in drugs. I think it's the neatest thing how a different drug can have such, or two things that are so similar can have wildly different effects. And that's what I really liked, so I wanted to do something in the drug field. I didn't want to be a pharmacist. And I got in, I didn't even really know about this company. I got into it right away. I thought I'd try it out for a while. And then from there, like you said, you can kind of branch out different ways within a company once you're in. And then I was able to kind of keep angling toward what I wanted to do more and more, which is, interpretation of drug results and, really explaining to a physician, they're taking this, this is why it's doing this. And that's kind of how I got to what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I thought I was going to go to Chicago, get a master's, go to medical school, and then with my master's I discovered that I liked doing research, and decided to stay on for a PhD, got that, and then have been doing research in one way or another ever since. Finding positions, and it's not easy finding jobs in academia either, post-graduation. And let me tell you, don't ever graduate after the worst recession since the Great Depression. It makes it really hard to find a job. So you have to network. LinkedIn has been a savior for me. I've actually had recruiters contact me on LinkedIn, and I just have a free account. I'm not even a paid subscriber on that. There's a number of recruiting, job placement, Kelly, Aerotech, lab support. They're more than willing to help you if they see that you're someone who can bring them money. So they always get a cut of whatever the future employer would pay you. And they can either do job placements for temporary positions, which is great because you can go into a position with flexibility in that you don't necessarily have to work there for the rest of your life, in that they might be able to put you someplace else that better suits you. And then they can also help you with recruiting for temp to hire and other places, other types of placement as well. So these are phenomenal resources that you have available. And again, it's just on a website that you can go to and then call. And all three of those places have offices in the Twin Cities if you're interested in staying local. And they all have usually most of them have branches in other cities if you're interested in moving to other cities too. So. Yeah.
And Ross, how did you get involved in that, and what kind of group you
Well, let's see. How brief can I be? Graduate school. For my master's, I didn't do any stem cell work. However, I was doing a lot of work on bone regeneration and utilizing engineering principles to try and produce tissue responses. My advisor at the time is an orthodontist and a researcher as well, and he moved into stem cells using mesenchymal stem cells or bone derived. They produce bone, fat, cartilage, and stuff like that. So we started using them, and I got a baseline experience using those during my PhD work. I moved to the University of Chicago for my first postdoc, And we utilized hematopoietic stem cells and mesenchymal stem cells for imaging purposes to try and find out when you inject these cells into mice where they might locate within the vasculature. Mice have very thin crania, so you can use very high-powered imaging techniques to be able to see within the vasculature of the skull if you have a fluorophore or a fluorescent molecule that's attached to the cell. And you can monitor where the cells go, what they do. You can take try and identify the cells by taking them out and see whether they've changed, differentiated into anything. And after when my daughter was born, we decided to move back to the Twin Cities so we could be closer to family. And I got a position at the Stem Cell Institute. And my boss is a hematologist. So he's a clinical hematologist and a PhD. He got his PhD and MD at the University of Wisconsin, kind of the American hotbed of stem cell technology. So when he came up here, he started a stem cell lab in the early 2000s, and I joined in 2008. So we utilized mesenchymal stem cells, hematopoietic stem cells, embryonic stem cells, induced pluripotent stem cells to try and look at a number of different things. I was kind of an offshoot of the lab. He was primarily hematology, trying to develop erythrocytes, lymphocytes, any types of cells that you may want to reproduce in oncology patients, specifically for leukemia. And because the kind of the bone component is very important in developing blood, he brought me in to try and develop bone niches using mesenchymal stem cells and embryonic stem cells, and to try and recreate that environment to better host the cells that he was trying to develop for clinical purposes. So.
That's great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for Rob.
Mm-hmm.
How is the competition intense in your field, like with the other countries or companies?
In getting a position, or as in a graduate position, or in industry? Yeah, especially with a PhD. They tend to pay you more, so they don't want too many PhDs around. Plus, they gum up the works. They're too smart. So they don't want people thinking too much sometimes. So, it's tough to get in. It took me from graduating with my PhD in 2006, getting a job in 2011. So it was 5 years. And in that time, I just kind of treaded water in academia, which was not a bad thing, actually, because it increased my exposure to many different techniques, and it refined my experimental abilities as well. So it was very important. I wouldn't be where I am today without that experience, but it is very difficult to get in unless you know someone, or that you've kind of a hiring manager, you pique their interest. So.
Donna, one of the main motives for you to join or to be veterinary work was to combine a lot of animals and medicine, or you like working with people too? You were told a lot of people?
It's definitely a huge part of it is the owner and the people. So I think a lot of people have the false idea that you can go into veterinary medicine and work with the animals, but every animal has an owner with it. So that is a huge misunderstanding that a lot of students do have. And so you'll find a lot of the different vet schools will have a very big interview component to your application, and which is really good because there's a lot of people that, we've all had doctors and stuff, and different professionals that really can't communicate or bring it down to your level to help you understand what's going on with your condition or your animal. And so interviews are a huge component now, and making sure that you do have good communication skills and just really can, be social and kind of help that client understand. So for me, I always have I grew up on a horse ranch, just kind of south of St. Cloud, and have always been around animals, and still have several horses, and I still raise and breed quarter horses and do a lot of competitions with horses. So they've always been a huge part of my life. So for me, I definitely, yes, had the desire to be around animals, and then also I was passionate about sciences as well, so it was kind of a really good fit for me to do that. But definitely the people are a huge component of it as well. So, yeah.
What type of jobs would you suggest, like, for just like getting experience or like in the field, like for entry-level positions? Like,
Depends on what you're looking for. If you're going to do product development or research and development, then a research, in our company, it's called a research specialist position or a research assistant. There are, if you're looking for like a Cargill or 3M, they've got different qualifications on what you're looking for. Honeywell, I think they have
Medtronic, Boston
Medtronic,
Scientific.
Boston Scientific, Beckman Coulter. They all have their varying degrees, but of entry-level placement. But that's pretty much what they have out there. There's a lot of positions, but again, I think Beckman's the one that's expanding right now. So they got a lot of positions that are open. Hint, hint.
Yeah, it just depends kind of on what you want to do. We are always hiring new grads. We always have position openings. Most of them are going to be either weekends or evenings or overnights, because that's just how it works. We're open around the clock, so people who've been there a while typically don't want to work overnight. So yeah, I kind of got in before the whole recession started, but I was kind of the last class, I think, that it was recession-proof. But now, I mean, we're still hiring, and I know a lot of most companies still have entry-level stuff open pretty frequently, but it's a lot more competitive now. For one of our opening, like entry-level positions, we probably get 25, 30 applicants for one position. So.
And don't forget that if you don't want to do a graduate degree, industry is not the only place for you. You can go to academia as well. Mm-hmm. They've got lab managers, or research assistants at the universities. There's all kinds of things that you can do. And if you're trying to figure out what you want to do, there were a number of people that took up positions as junior scientists at the university, biding time to try and figure out what they wanted to do. Mm-hmm. A lot of them went to medical school afterwards because they finally figured out that they do want to do that, or they went on to another degree, pharmacy, or they went on to industry. So there's, if you can't find a job, don't sit at mom and dad's house. To look for all kinds of ways of getting in, and community colleges as well will have positions, and small state schools. I mean, you got these smaller state universities where the professors don't have full labs, but they may have enough money for a lab technician. So. Do you have any questions from the back?
With your time here at St. John's and St. Ben's, just for everyone in general, what was the most important thing you did, whether it be like a research project or like being like a teaching assistant or something? Like, what do you advise? Like, there's a lot of people here, like, they're not sure what they want to do. Like, what's the best way to find experience?
For me, it was making connections. Like I said, my first job came from someone who graduated a year older than me. So just, if you have those opportunities, stay in contact with people who, will be graduating ahead of you. and just kind of ask them as many questions as possible. It's also a good way for you to learn if that's the direction you want to go. They can kind of explain, what they do in their daily life or job, and that'll help you decide whether or not you want to go that way. But for me, it was making connections.
Yep, getting experience working with people in the area that you think you're interested in. I know back when we had the Career Resource Center, we had little cards with everybody's careers, and we could go through and, file through to see, who was working there, who graduated from here, and, can go search them out and see if you can tag along with them. And sure, now it's all on computer, so it's real easy, but definitely utilize that, get that experience. That's probably the biggest thing that helped me too, is just networking with the people around here, and then getting experience with different veterinarians in the area, and just veterinarians that I had known already. So experience and networking is probably the biggest thing I took out of my 4 years of undergrad.
Go to career services. I actually worked at career services when I was in college, and that was kind of how I met a lot of people, because we put on events like this. So I would meet them, and then I'd ask them about what they do. And are the cane files still a thing? Yes? Use the cane files. It's got a list of alumni, and you can search by field, by when they graduated, where they work, what company they work at. And, if you have a particular field you're interested in, learn about the companies in Minnesota that do what you want to do. And then find an alumni that works there, and they'll usually be more than willing to help you out.
I'll go in a different direction. Develop your writing and speaking skills.
Yes.
Take a public speaking course. Take a writing course. I know I hate writing. But my boss at the U said, I'm a horrible writer. You're worse. So, of course, it wasn't that bad of it. He was just making a point. But if you can't, for biology majors, I know you guys sit there till 3 o'clock in the morning trying to be able to discern what a ribosome does. But can you accurately make it sound interesting in either an oral or written presentation on what a ribosome does? That is very important, especially in trying to find a job, because if they don't see that you have any good speaking skills or writing skills, they're not going to want you. Especially if you're going to graduate school, because you will be writing papers then, and grants.
Go ahead.
For everyone, what work did you do immediately after your undergraduate? I know some of you have talked already, but once you left your undergrad, if you went to medical school or a master's program, what work did you do there? You graduated in May, and in June, what were you doing?
I was at my job. I started 3 weeks after I graduated, so I'm still at the same company.
Yeah, same here. Within a week or two, I was in my internship, and a week after completing my internship, I was back up here and working what I do now. So.
Not me. It took me a few months. I moved back home, but just kept job searching and eventually got my foot in the door.
I found out in the fall that I was going to Chicago. I graduated in January, and I didn't have to start till August. So I went home. I worked at a hospital for 4 months. And when I realized that my father and I just were not going to be able to live in the same house, I moved back up here because I had friends up here. And I worked for a tree cutting company, so wielded chainsaws for the summer. And then moved down to Chicago and started my graduate work.
All right, if anyone has any final questions that they want to ask, now's the time. Else, after a minute or two, we'll open things up where you guys can go ask individually. at the end.